Ooh, Motivation Monday. All right. Listen up, motherfuckers. It's Monday morning. All right. This is the only Monday, the only today that you're going to get. And you know what I hate to hear more than anything for people? I hate to hear, I'm going to do this. I'm trying to do this. Or even worse, oh, well, I used to do it this way. I used to do that. None of that shit matters. What you're going to do in the future, I don't care about that. What you used to do, you can't ride on that. What you can ride on is what you're going to do today. Make today count. Now,
You are now tuning in to the Roughnecks Podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Much love.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the final episode of August. This is episode 49 of the Roughnecks Podcast. It's crazy to think that we are 49 episodes into this podcast. I started it way back almost a year ago. September 25th will be the 1-year anniversary of this podcast. I can't believe that it's made it this far. I owe it all to you guys for listening each and every week. My listeners are the reason that I continue to do what I do. Thank you guys for that. But as I've said the past couple episodes, the fall sale is coming up in September. Stay tuned for those dates. We may even have a little giveaway. Stay tuned for that as well. It's nothing set in stone yet, but we will for sure have a fall sale in September. But let's get into this week's episode. Joining me today for episode 49 of the Roughnecks Podcast, can't even say the names right, is a good one. Coach Dustin Myers, welcome to the Roughnecks Podcast.
Yo, Cole, what's going on, man?
Not much. Thank you for taking the time out. I know you have a very busy schedule all the time. You guys got a lot going on over there at Old School and everything else that you got going with Old School. But I really appreciate you coming on and having a little discussion with me to wrap up our topic of discipline.
Well, I mean, there was really no way for me to say no. I mean, first of all, we got kind of the Pataskala connection. And then just the name of this podcast. I mean, I wish I would have thought of it, you know what I mean? Because I've always said I'm a roughneck, you know, so I like the the whole aura, the roughneck aura. So couldn't say no to coming on and chopping it up with you a little bit.
I can't even take credit for that name. It was actually me and Teddy, who was my roommate in college. We started this together. He's from Texas, and he was the one that just came up with it. He said it, and we both looked at each other, kind of like was a light bulb just went off in the head, and we're like, "That's perfect. Like that fits us perfect."
I think usually that's how it goes in business or anything else. When you have kind of the good idea, right away. You don't have to. If an idea comes to you for business, something you got to sit around and debate and think, well, maybe we do it this way or maybe we'll call it that. No, when it's the one, like right when it came out of his mouth, Roughnecks, you knew that was it, right?
Yes, we both looked at each other like that's perfect. So to kick off all my episodes, I allow the guests to give a little background on themselves. So tell the Roughnecks listeners who Dustin Myers is.
All right. Well, I guess rather than starting at the beginning, because I'm an old man, I'm 42 years old. I'll kind of start at the present and just kind of go back just a little ways. Just give you kind of touch on real quick. So I'm 42 years old. I live here in Pataskala, moving to Granville, Ohio. So right outside of Columbus. Married. I got 2 kids, and I own the Old School Gym. A founding partner of supplement company Max Ever Muscle. I'm the strength conditioning coach for the Ohio Regional Training Center. That's the Olympic wrestling arm of the wrestling program at The Ohio State University. And I also served as the head strength coach for the collegiate wrestling team from 2014 to 2018. I've been training since I was 12 years old. So, I guess basically 30 years now. I've done a little bit of everything, and I basically lived my life in the gym, and I'm going to do that until I'm 80, 90, 100 years old. However long I'm blessed to be here on earth, I'm going to be lifting weights and picking up heavy things and climbing ropes and everything else. So that's just kind of sums up, I think, who I am, at least in the public eye. I mean, obviously there's other, facets to what I do. I like gardening. I like chopping firewood. I like to swim, those type of things. But when it comes down to it, I'm a weightlifter, and I, teach people how to push themselves. And that's it.
What actually got you into weightlifting? Like, where did that whole thing, like the fitness side of you, where did the inspiration, I guess, stem from?
Well, I mean, you got to remember, I was born in 79. I grew up in the 80s, and you got to think in the 80s, there's no social media, there's no YouTube, there's nothing like that. So it's like anything, you get shaped by your surroundings. And, I grew up with my, seeing my dad lift weights every day. He had this old, detached, unheated garage at our house, out there in Eastern Ohio, outside of Steubenville. And, he had been lifting weights for a long time. When he would come home from the steel mill, it didn't matter whether it was 90 degrees like it is today or whether it was 0 degrees in the winter. First thing he did when he came home, he didn't even change. He went out there in his work clothes and he lifted weights. And he would do that before he came in the house. And so I think from an early age, I just associated it with like that's just something that you do once you're a man or whatever. You just lift weights, and even in the summertime at the time, he was helping out with like the local football team at the high school there. I think he might have been coaching the junior high team or the freshman team or something. And again, this is 83, 84, 85. Teams didn't have strength coaches, kids didn't have personal trainers, but the kids on the team, he knew some of the dads or whatever, and they knew that he was a weightlifter and had weights. So in the summertime, his athletes that could drive would come down and they would lift weights. He was essentially their strength coach. We just didn't call it that. He was just teaching these guys how to lift weights. So from an early age, that's some of my earliest memories, 4 and 5 years old. I would sit out there and I thought it was so cool because it's like these, high school kids are down here, they're shooting hoops and, bullshitting and talking about girls and lifting weights or whatever. My dad's out there, for lack of a better term, he was coaching them.
Mm-hmm.
So I really just grew up around it. And, I remember it was just one of those things, like he would say, he didn't try to like make workouts for me when I was little or anything like that. Like I do with my son now, it's a whole different ball game. But, he would just say, well, when you're 12, you can start lifting weights. And so I didn't really think anything of it. It was just when I was 12, I was like, all right, it's time to start lifting weights. And that was kind of, where it started. And I think that, those early years, obviously what I know now and my understanding of, how to improve performance and stuff, is nothing is light years ahead of what I knew then and what my dad knew and what he was showing these guys. But I think that kind of my mentality, my training style, and just kind of my outlook on, I don't even like to say the word, but on fitness, that's where it started. And that was heavily influenced by that.
It's crazy what a father figure or a coach or a mentor can do at an early age to us. Because I look at like the things that I do, I never would have thought that I'd be working these long days outside in the hot summer sun. And then I look back at what my old man used to do. And I'm like, man, like you don't realize how much it shapes you into the type of person that you become as those older figures when you're at a young age. But that obviously carried over through your life because now back in, I believe it was 2003, you and Corey Gregory took the leap and started something that I don't know if you guys expected it to go the way it has gone, but what made you guys decide to start Old School Gym?
Well, kind of fast forward from, those early days, like I talked about watching my dad in the gym, by the time I got to high school, I was in 10th grade. By that time, I'd already had, 3 or 4 years of weightlifting under my belt. And I was pretty advanced compared to the other kids, my age. I mean, I was a small kid, but, I was strong. I could do 30 pull-ups and I could, bench probably almost twice my body weight and stuff like that. And when I left junior high, went to high school in 10th grade, we kind of Corey went to the other junior high, which was kind of, our schools had consolidated. So I had heard about him because I knew he was kind of like the other kid that was real into weightlifting, from the other junior high. And as luck would have it, we ended up having weightlifting class together in 10th grade. And so we kind of hit it off right away because, I was like the only like non-football player from my junior high that was really into weightlifting. At that time, like if you didn't play football, you usually didn't lift weights.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was kind of in the same boat at his junior high. So we kind of hit it off that way in, literally in the weight room. And almost kind of like as rivals at first, because I was like, I don't want to lose to this Corey Gregory kid, and
it's one of those where you're getting pushed at the same time. Like you want to outdo them.
I mean, honestly, I think that was why, especially once we started lifting together regularly, because then we started lifting together outside of lifting class. He would, I think after wrestling season that year, him and some other guys, they would start coming down because I think Corey had his license by the time. They would drive to my house after school and we would lift in the garage just like my dad's athletes had done. And, Corey and I were great partners because we were very similar in strength. He's a little bit stronger than me now, but, what can you do? But, we were very similar in strength and we pushed each other, but we hated to lose to each other. And it was one of those things where like, if I went first, I knew I was going to lose because he would beat me by 1 rep or whatever, or 5 pounds and, vice versa. And I can remember even probably up until the college years, I would get so mad at him if he would beat me in something. Like I would want to cry. You know what I mean? I'm not a 6-year-old feeling this way. I was, even when I'm 20 years old, I would want to cry. I would get so pissed. And there was times where, he would beat me on something that I felt like was my lift, or, maybe I would better, beat him on something that typically he was something, stereotypically better than me at. And it would cause a little rift. We'd be mad at each other for a couple of days. But, I mean, part of that's a little immaturity or whatever, but I'm thankful for it because I think that's how we learned to push ourselves. And we kind of learned that a lot of times you have these limits. You think, all right, well, I do 10 pull-ups. That's how many I can do. Well, when you have that mindset, then you never really grow. But if the mindset is, I don't give a fuck how many I normally do, I'm going to do one more than Corey G.
Mm-hmm.
Then next thing you know, it goes from 10 to 12 to 14. Next thing you know, you're doing numbers or weight that you never thought you could do. So I think, that's where we developed that competitive spirit. And I know I'm kind of getting sidetracked here a little bit, but, so we ended up, after high school, I went to Cincinnati for a year. He stayed home, kind of worked in the coal mine, saved money for a year to kind of get out of the valley. I ended up transferring to Ohio State. He came up with a couple other buddies of mine. We got a house together. We had a little weight room in the crawl space and stuff, and, kind of reunited, started lifting weights. And he did like a 1-year exercise science thing or something at Columbus State. So after a year, he was already working as a personal trainer. I'm still, living the college life. At that time, thought I was going to be an English teacher, even though I love to lift weights. But I think that at the time, again, there's no internet, no social media or anything. I didn't even really comprehend that you could really make a living lifting weights or teaching people to lift weights, because it definitely wasn't happening where we were from. And even seeing it up here in Columbus, the little bit we'd see personal trainers, I had like no concept of like, how do you even make that happen? I'm getting an English degree. How would I be a trainer, But he, worked as a trainer. I ended up getting a desk job at the gym he was at. He ended up at one point, I think maybe around 2000, 99 or 2000, he ended up leaving and opened a small personal training studio on Bryce Road. Very humble, small space. The office was a closet, essentially. He put a card table in the closet and that had a laptop in. That was his office. And so I started training clients there. And I think by the time I was maybe a junior in college, I started thinking, I was like, man, I'm almost making as much money as a teacher. And I'm lifting weights every day. I'm hanging out with my buddies. We're listening to Wu-Tang. Like, why would I go to grad school now and become a teacher? Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. So I still finished out my degree, but by that time I was ready to just kind of jump into it full time. And so then, trained full time for about a year. And then in 2003, I ended up, buying my first house, the house that my wife and I still live in, out here in Pataskala. And then maybe a month or so after that, we kind of caught wind through the grapevine that this small little, hole in the wall gym in Pataskala was going out of business. It was called Amazing Fitness, which is hilarious because there was nothing amazing about it. The place was an absolute dump. It had like maybe 5 members. And we ended up getting in touch with the guy, ended up buying it from him. And kind of the same thing you talked about with your podcast. I remember us, sitting around trying to come up with a name. We were at his training studio and we're like, man, what are we going to call this gym? We call it the garage. We're going to call it this. We're going to call it that. Now he would probably tell it different, but the way I remembered, I'm the one that came up with the name. I said, we're going to call it Old School Gym. And right then we knew, like, yes, it's old school. Because I think, having the personal training studio, you got to remember this, before like CrossFit gyms kind of brought like hardcore training to the mainstream. Late 90s, everything was kind of foo-foo. Fitness was all about, spandex and, you got a smoothie bar and who has the best equipment and stuff. So I think at the training studio, we always had that feeling of like, even though the place wasn't that nice, we had to try to make it seem nice. We'd put flowers on the front desk and we'd have a Brita picture out and try to make, we'd paint the walls bright colors because we're trying to attract a clientele that had money to spend on personal training. And when we got Old School, we knew the name fit and we're like, you know what, there's no way. You can't put lipstick on this pig. It's just, this building is falling apart. It leaks when it rains. The equipment is old as fuck. Like, it's dirty, it's grimy, it stinks in here. We're never going to get the smell out of here. It's old school, and it is what it is. And this is who we are anyway. So we don't got to fake it. This is just, the throwback to my dad's garage, the throwback to the old bus garage that we lifted in high school at Edison High School. So, that was kind of how Old School started. And, I just kind of adopted the mentality early on, like, hey, this place ain't going to be for everyone. Mm-hmm. And people are going to walk in right away, and they're either going to know when they walk in, like, yes, I want to be a part of this. I haven't felt this way since high school. Or they're going to walk in and be like, oh, I don't know about this place. And the people that don't know about it, that's fine. They can go
That's why
somewhere
that you
else.
have different types of gyms. That's why you have a Planet
Right.
Fitness. That's why you have an Old School. I mean, those are two completely different types of gyms. At least you're going and working out, but at the same time, like everybody's different. But what I like that you talked about is that you guys didn't try and fake it. Like you guys were you. That'd be like if Planet Fitness tried to fake and be you, it just wouldn't fit. It wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be their reputation, like what they are. But so that's like a really cool thing. And it's like you branded it to yourselves and made it easy to continue with the business and grow with it. And it's crazy to watch, I was born in 1998, so a little bit right before you guys opened it, really. But I've watched as I've grown up that gym grow as well. And it's become it's like known across the country where you guys have had, all kinds of people when you guys were at 40, even still now, come into there from like Ohio State football players, well-known Ohio State football players, to Arnold himself. Like, how are you guys able to build that reputation up? Like, first off, who are some of the biggest names that you've had in that gym that you would say?
Well, I mean, you already name dropped the biggest one. Arnold obviously was, the biggest one. And I will say this, that was probably the only time I can ever remember in my adult life feeling like almost like a fanboy. Like when someone walked in the room, I was like, he seemed larger than life. It seemed like his voice was like echoing everything he said. I legitimately felt starstruck, and it was a really surreal feeling to think Arnold is in my gym. Like it almost I couldn't even comprehend it. It felt so strange. So that's definitely, the biggest name. But, you talk on, kind of local celebrities, I guess, when you think of Buckeye football, Braxton Miller, still comes out here to the new spot, boxes with me. Antonio Pittman has been a training partner of mine for probably, I don't know, 6-7 years, great friend, great training partner. Beanie Wells comes out here on the regular. So those are, Dan Boom Heron, when he's in town, he's always out here at the gym. So, any OSU fans that are listening, obviously they're going to recognize those names. And then, because of my, tie-in with OSU wrestling, I mean, Reese Highlight Humphrey, the USA Wrestling Coach of the Year, Kyle Snyder, Olympic gold medalist, Colin Moore is still one of my main training partners. He's out here every week. He was the Olympic alternate this year to Japan, US Open champ, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on. So I think that this is something that social media was a big catalyst for. I don't think that we're really, obviously we have, bigger names here, and, maybe me and G have gotten, more experience. We've gotten smarter over the years, but we're not really doing things that much different than we were in 2003 and 2004, when even probably your parents in Pataskala had no idea who we were. They didn't even know if there was a gym there, and no one knew about us. We would try to, spend some marketing on like the dollar saver. It'd be like those coupons you get in the mail, try to give out like a free month and stuff like that. And it was just like throwing stuff at a wall because there was really no way to like show people what you were about or show people what you were doing. And, first with, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, with them coming along, that's what, has changed the game for us. And I mean, I got, obviously my Instagram account's done well. I have, videos that I've done. I've collabed with Muscle and Strength. They sent me this trophy last year that like my core strength video on their site is over 4 million views. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking like, this is insane. 4 million people have watched, some core training video I did. Like those type of things were not possible, 20 years ago or, whenever we started this thing. So, social media was a big catalyst. And I think the reason that we've done well with it, kind of tying back to some stuff you talked about earlier, is we just try to be authentic. People try to straddle too many different worlds. They want to, they want to put on a front that they're this, or they want to pretend that they're that, or I'm just showing people who I am. I talk the way I talk when I talk to my kids or my clients or anything else. We listen to the same music. We don't really try to, be something we're not. And I think that, kind of rings true to people. They see, I think people can see through the bullshit at this point, I guess is what I'm getting to. Social media is flooded with, it's a highlight reel for so many. And of course I have to highlight certain things, and there's certain things that I want to show. You get to pick what you show, right? But I think that, people have kind of gotten wizened up to, especially in the fitness world, there's so much fake shit out there. there's so many
fitness accounts of people who should not have fitness accounts. Like, I know for a fact I should not start a fitness account, so I don't even try. But I look at some of the fitness accounts and I'm like, I feel like I could do better than this, but hey, do what you want to do.
Well, I mean, there's a part of me that looks at that and thinks, you know what? Well, even if they help one person, then it's a good thing. But I think the best way that you can help people is always leading by example. And one of the examples you have to set when you lead people is that you got to be true to yourself. You always got to be true to who you are deep inside, because it's a losing game trying to be someone else or trying to fake something. So, I try to lead, with my work ethic. I try to lead, by showing, hey, you can be a tough guy, hardcore maniac, and still be a good person. You can still be kind to other people. You can be kind to people who are less fortunate. You can still be a good husband, a good father, things like that. And, I think if I can just keep setting that example for people, that's going to be my contribution when it's all said and done.
So you guys have a lot of things that come with old school, and one of them is the max effort muscle. Why did you guys end up deciding to start that? Talk to me through that decision, and then I got a couple other questions to go with that as well.
Yeah. I'll try to make it quick then, because I want to hear your follow-up. So probably trying to think of the timeline here. It might have been like 2007, 2008. Corey G was a co-founder of Muscle Farm, which I think they're still kind of floating around out there, but they were a huge supplement company at the time. They were kind of one of the first ones that sponsored the UFC. Excuse me. And, they sponsored Tiger Woods. That was how Corey originally got the relationship with Arnold. They did an Arnold line, which he had never done before. And the company just completely blew up. But it's like just about anything, when it gets too big, the guys who started it have no control anymore. I mean, it was a publicly traded company. They had a board of directors. And then you go from being the guy in charge that had the vision that got you there to now you don't even get a say in anything. And so once he got to that point, I don't remember the timeline. This might have been 2014 or 2015. He decided it was time to walk away. He left. He had like probably a 1-year non-compete or whatever. But he said, hey, when this non-compete's up, he said, we're going to do it over, but we're going to do it the right way. He said, I want to bring you in, and we don't need to be the biggest supplement company on earth. We need to just be able to have our arms around it and focus on, what he felt like Muscle Farm lost as it went on. Focus on helping the customer, not just giving them a good product, but everything that goes around with it. Because, look, I'm a supplement guy, but I'm the first one to tell you, if you just have the good supplements, that's not going to do you any good. You got to understand the discipline side to training. You got to understand recovery. You got to understand how to lift. It's a lifestyle. So we're going to, start Max Effort Muscle. We're going to really tie ourselves into the branding, showcase the way we train, the way we live, and boom, that's how it started. I don't even know what year we're in now. We might be in year 4, year 5. I'm not even sure, but we got the whole, Super HQ out here. We got, the gym and Max Effort under one roof. I'm actually in our new podcast studio, which is crazy. I'm going to be launching my first podcast here in the next couple of weeks, called the Wrestling Strength Podcast with Coach Myers. So the synergy that we have by having everything under one roof has just been incredible.
The amount of things that you have going on is, I don't know how you stay going on our topic, discipline, because, I don't know how you, I want you to speak on it because, you still spend time with your kids, your wife, you still do all these things, all these different things every day and work out on top of it. How do you stay consistent and stay disciplined? Like what's your secret to it, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Man, I get asked this a lot. People will say, what motivates you? How do you stay disciplined? And honestly, it's one of those things. I don't feel like I have to search for it. I think it's just when I've always been kind of obsessive in a way. Luckily I've been able to kind of channel it into certain things. When I was young, I was into comic books. And when I liked comic books, boom, that's all I thought about. Once I got into weightlifting, that's all I thought about. So I think when you have, obsessive tendencies and you can learn to channel them a certain way, it becomes easy to make decisions. I just look at things as like, all right, here's the silos of my life. The goals that I have set for myself, for my family, for my gym. This is one silo, and then the other silo is everything else. And so everything each day either fits into one or the other. And I just look at it like, if it doesn't fit into this silo that's in line with my goals, then I don't need it. So I eat a certain way because, that's in line with the way that I want to live and that I want to be healthy. And, training as far as I never understand not wanting to train. I think maybe just because I've grown up around it, but I actually don't feel right. If I would wake up and just go a full day without training, by the end of the day, I would have anxiety. I would just not feel like myself. I have to, and for me, part of it's weightlifting, part of it's the conditioning thing too. I do some type of conditioning every day. I have to almost kind of break myself or at least get close to that point, or I don't feel like I can go about the rest of my day.
It's crazy that you say that because I'm not gonna lie. After football ended for me in college, I got the little lazy spell going for me, and
Right.
I like started working out again, and I was like, why did I ever stop? Like I realized how much one, it's a great stress reliever. You could have the worst day at work, worst day, in your opinion, the worst day of your life, and go work out. And for some reason, I always just felt great after every single time I worked out because you need that, like you said, you need that breaking point, and you need that. It's just a great reliever of stress, and so it's crazy that you mentioned that. But I also I forget what I was gonna say now because I was thinking of so many
Well,
different things.
let me just touch on this. I think that, you know, you probably had that in a lot of guys that I talk to, you have that growing up with structured sports. And so you kind of take it for granted. And then when you get away from structured sports, you lose that and you start to realize you don't even feel like yourself, but you might not know why. And
Mhm.
it's because you're not being challenged. Maybe you don't have the camaraderie and the competition of the locker room or, the weight room and the football field or whatever. And once you lose that, it's almost like you lose a part of yourself. So I've seen it time and time again, even with high level athletes, guys that, that I've worked with here that, after they're done, maybe they played Ohio State, they go to the league. After the league, they kind of feel like they're wandering around. They've been playing football for however many years. They don't feel like themselves anymore. And then by coming back to the gym, they feel like they get a piece of themselves back. And that carries over into everything. Like if you didn't start working out again, do you think you would have started a podcast? I mean, you probably wouldn't have had that type of motivation to do these other things in other areas of your life.
That's what's crazy too, is I started kind of slacking on the podcast. And when I got back into working out, I got it almost like it motivated me to do all these other things as well to get back on this podcast. Because this is the fifth episode that we will have in. I did 2 episodes 2 weeks ago, 2 episodes last week, and another episode. Your episode will be on Monday. So like I'm like getting everything. I'm recording one again on Monday, another one on Tuesday, and another one next Thursday. So like I'm just recording all the time now, and it motivated me to find that passion. But the thing you said too that I wanted to touch on is, you had that drive. It didn't feel. It's like the whole thing. It doesn't feel like a job. It's like what you love to do, and people in our 5 episodes this month, 4 of them, including yours, have touched on that about needing your why, like your discipline, like you have that why. That what fuels you is your why. And like Carlos was the first one. He was a bodybuilder. He's going and doing bodybuilding and stuff. And he said, I write down 16 weeks every single, or 16 weeks and then 15 weeks till my show, because he's like, you have to be constantly reminded of why you're doing what you're doing. And like, especially with working out, it can be, some people, it is a chore in a way, but eventually that chore becomes a hobby and becomes something that you love to do.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I think, something that has always kind of driven me too, especially now, being a father, is I just know how impactful as a child watching not just watching my dad lift weights, but also watching, how hard he worked, not just, going to the mill every day, but, chopping firewood, doing things. My dad never complained about physical labor. And my mom, was the same way. I got a lot of my fitness stuff from her too, but not necessarily the weight room. My mom, she's 67 or 68 years old, still does yoga every day. She does yoga, meditation, hiking. So even growing up with her, like I remember, in the wintertime, she would cross country ski through our property. She was always playing tennis. This just wasn't really big into weightlifting, but she was always very active, very hardworking. So I think just being raised in that environment, I know the type of impact that had on me. I want to make sure that my kids are raised in that same type of environment. In our house, it's just, working out, doing active things outside, doing physical labor. It's just a part of every day. So
that's the thing too, is weight training is not the only way that you can be active and you can be fit and work out. That's what people, I think, sometimes get scared away from, like getting a gym membership, or like, oh, I don't want to pay for a membership. You can go walk down the street. You can go, run around the neighborhood, ride your bike or whatever, or like go even split firewood. I don't think a lot of people understand that that's not necessarily an easy thing. We heat our house with a wood burning stove still. My parents do. So
nice.
I'm used to that. I'm used to splitting firewood all summer long. Luckily, it's not by hand anymore, and we got a log splitter, but still.
Well, then I'm going to challenge you next time you go to your parents to help them with the wood. Get out that maul, get out that axe. My mom has a log splitter now because I'm not there. But anytime I go home and, I'll split wood for it, I do it by hand just because it's therapeutic. I feel kind of that connection I like being out in nature and getting to, hear the sounds and getting a good sweat out there, and the workout aspect of it too. So I'm going to challenge you.
It's a challenge. The splitting the wood itself is a challenge. Because I usually, a lot of times, if I can't help them that day, like split wood, I will, like some of the bigger pieces, they're like, will you just split these in half for us? And I'm like, okay, right. Fine. So, but it is like, especially those bigger pieces, it takes a while to get those sometimes.
No doubt, man. But I think you hit the nail on the head too. Something is always better than nothing. So if it starts with, hey, I'm going to go for a walk every day, then, hey, that's a start. And then, maybe after a week of walking every day, maybe you add in some body weight stuff, or you add in some yoga, or, you can do something every day. It doesn't necessarily have to be you're going to drive to the gym and stay there for 2 hours and do a strict regimen. So I think that anything that gets people up and moving is always a positive thing. And not everyone's going to want to train the way that I train, or go to classes or whatever. But yeah, you should always do something active every single day. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I know a guy, you may know Zach Muncie. He's from Pataskala, but he was over 500 or 400 pounds.
Wow.
And the time he finally, of all times, that he said, you know what, I'm going to make a change, was during COVID when it all hit. And it was like we were locked down at home. He started walking laps around his kitchen. That's all he did. He just every day would walk laps. And that just goes to show, like, I'm trying to get him on my podcast, but that just goes to show, like, any little thing can help and make a difference. And now I don't remember how much weight he's lost, but he's lost a crap ton of weight. It's insane, but it just goes to show what it can do. But one of the questions I wanted to ask you back on max effort, we kind of got sidetracked, is what would you recommend for someone to put in their sack right now?
All right. Well, the most important one is the amino recovery. That's what I recommend to all my athletes. 10 grams of BCAAs, 5 grams of glutamine, plus electrolytes. All of my athletes take that after every single workout, after a wrestling practice, after lifting, whatever. If you're an athlete or lifter that wants to get stronger, then you need our tri-blend creatine. And then protein-wise, people love our tri-blend protein. I'm actually a fan of our plant-based protein. I take it every day. It's delicious. And I've tried a million of them because I had to cut dairy out of my diet. It was causing some acne and some skin issues. So our plant-based protein, is the best tasting on the market. It's the only one that I've ever found that is not chalky when it mixes up and actually tastes closer to, kind of the whey protein that has that good, milk fat in there. So those are the three I'd recommend right off the bat: amino recovery, tri-blend creatine, tri-blend protein. Boom.
There you go. You guys heard it there first from the man himself. If you need to, first off, you guys need to go get a sack right now and get those three things right there. So, but now I know you got a limited time, so we're going to get into my favorite segment of this podcast, which is Motivation Monday.
Let's do it.
So Motivation Monday is the point in the episode where I allow the guests to give a little inspirational bump to set the tone for their week as our Roughnecks listeners listen on Monday morning. They could be on their way to the gym or work or whatever it is, because our episodes come out at 7 a.m. on Monday morning. So what do you got for Motivation Monday?
Ooh, Motivation Monday. All right. Listen up, motherfuckers. It's Monday morning. All right. This is the only today that you're going to get. And you know what I hate to hear more than anything from people? I hate to hear, I'm going to do this. I'm trying to do this. Or even worse, oh, well, I used to do it this way. I used to do that. None of that shit matters. What you're going to do in the future, I don't care about that. What you used to do, you can't ride on that. What you can ride on is what you're going to do today. Make today count. Now, the beauty of it is you get another day tomorrow. So let's go to the other side. Let's say today wasn't a good day. You're listening to it late in the day. You missed the gym. You ate bad. You didn't do well at work. You just didn't, operate well within your relationships, whatever it is. Tomorrow's a new start. So don't dwell on the bullshit that happened today. You get a clean slate every day. Today is what matters. Don't tell me what you're going to do tomorrow. Do it now.
Hell yes. That is one of the most truly passionate Motivation Mondays I've had. And I love it because this is usually the point in the episode, like where I hear it coming out of the guest, but I just heard it in your voice. Like you truly meant what you just said. And it is true. Like I've heard people say, oh, I just had like the worst day of my life. All right. If this truly is the worst day of your life, make tomorrow not the worst day. You have a new opportunity tomorrow to make it a great day. Because honestly, yesterday I had a crappy day, but I woke up today like, you know what? That's gone. That's in the past. There's nothing that's going to change what happened yesterday, but I can control what's about to happen today.
Yeah, you can't let it ruin today, right? And that's what people do a lot. They let yesterday ruin today, or the anxiety about what could happen tomorrow ruin today. Focus on today. Try to be now. Obviously, you still have to be cognizant of the past and you still have to be looking towards the future, but that ain't, you can't let it negatively affect your day today.
100%. And with that, that's a wrap on the 49th episode of the Roughnecks podcast. That is also a wrap on a discipline topic. Coach Dustin Myers, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. Where can people follow you and Old School Gym on social media?
All right. So I'm most active on Instagram. You can find me on there at Coach Myers _gut check. That'd be the best way. And then the gym, Old School Gym, is at Join a Real Gym and at Max Effort Muscle. That's our supplement company. We do some crazy content on there where we try to be really entertaining. We did some funny 90s skits today. I broke out some old khakis and was sagging my pants and stuff. So, make sure you guys, check that out, support the brands, and I'll see you guys on the interwebs.
Like I said, we got some sweet episodes coming out next month. Next month's topic I will announce right now is sacrifice in honor of the 20th anniversary of 9/11. You won't want to miss next week's episodes, though, because it's kind of a little different. It's a little bit of a bonus episode. It is with Granger Smith's tour manager. He is coming on. But until then, you know the deal. Life is hard and is going to knock you down like a bull does to a bull rider. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Roughnecks out. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Roughnecks podcast. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe and then hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our future episodes. If you want to be a guest on this podcast or have a guest idea, then email me at roughneckspodcast@gmail.com or message me on social media on Instagram at roughneckspodcast, Twitter at roughneckspodc1, or Facebook at roughneckspodcast. Life is hard and will knock you down just like a bull will. Don't lay there and let it run you over. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Till next week, Roughnecks